Hello and welcome to what I hope will be a rather soothing video. With every new console launch, one of the most enjoyable aspects for me is checking out the new user interface that you'll be spending many years utilizing over the course of the next console generation. Naturally, Xbox has continued to refine its original design that it was used on Xbox One, but Sony has something completely new, so let's check it out. I'm going to start here by tapping the PlayStation button to log in, which then will pop over to this. Select your user, as you might expect. I have different accounts here for different regions. Here's my US account. This is my personal account. So we're going to log in here, and as you can see, you have the game bar across the top, similar to PlayStation 4, though a bit smaller. The games themselves have a more presentable face with the artwork taken across the screen there. It also plays the music kind of like PlayStation 3 in a way, which could be annoying to some, I suppose. Down here, it's just some news and such, nothing too interesting just yet. Now, the way that the PS5 interface is broken up, it's similar to PS4, but there are some differences. First of all, it's kind of broken up into three tiers. At the top, we have games, media, search, settings, and your profile, along with a clock. And then in the middle, there's the game bar, of course, which we'll be looking at in a second. And then if you hit the PlayStation button, you get this, a customizable menu here at the bottom with things like you can check on your downloads. There's a switcher, notification, stuff like sound. You can go in here, for instance, and change your output device directly from this bar. You can change your microphone settings here, check on your controller and different accessories that are connected, bring up your account, log out, switch users, all this kind of stuff. And if you press the start button, or I guess the 3-line button as you might call it now, you can actually customize it and kind of optimize which icons you'd like in there, at least for those that are selectable. Notice there's a little PSVR icon there. I'm still waiting for an adapter to test that out. Now, if we pop back in here, let's go all the way over to the right, bring up the game library. So first of all, one change I really like is the way it shows your whole collection, I suppose. I haven't logged in with all of my accounts, but I do have my personal US account and the Digital Foundry work account on here. And it also, in a really cool move, shows games that are on disk. Like, for instance, The Last Guardian here. It's installed and it's on disk. You see the little disk icon. But for games that you have on disk that are not installed, what instead you'll see is something like this. You get the little lock icon, and this also applies to games stored on other accounts. So for instance, games that I covered for DF, like say Resident Evil 3, that game code is on a different account. But because I've played it before, it's recognized and shows up in your overall collection. So this is a great way to see what you own. And of course, you can sort it by alphabetical or by purchase date. You can also choose to filter by platform, and I believe PS3 refers specifically to PS Now, which I cannot show right now, unfortunately. So if we pop back here, you notice there's actually 4 options along the top. I think we can just show these for now. Installed is nice because this is specifically what is obviously installed, but it's broken up into 2 sections here. At the top, we have the console storage. These are the games that are stored in the internal SSD. You have to play PlayStation 5 games from the SSD. So yeah, down here then we have extended storage. Now this is the USB hard drive I have plugged in. It's an SSD, and you can have the system automatically install games to this drive if they're for PlayStation 4. All PS5 games will automatically go to this drive instead. Now, of course, I have some bangers installed here, such as Lich Battle Mage and Life of Black Tiger, which I'm sure we'll see soon enough. But yeah, so that's basically what the library screen is like. Unfortunately, in its current form, there are no folders like we got on PlayStation 4. So you just have these icons, similar to how it used to be. It works pretty well, I think. It's fast. I really appreciate that the library is essentially part of the main UI. There's no pausing or loading to get to a separate screen. Everything loads quickly. You can scroll pretty fast. It fills in the artwork pretty quickly. I think it pulls some from the internet, of course. So there is that, unless it's a disc game, I suppose. So yeah, now let's go up to the top here and check out settings, because I think a lot of people will want to see what's in here. And Yeah, it looks very similar to PS4, though it has that nice sort of golden light rays coming down from the upper left. I'm going to start with perhaps the most interesting one here, and that's screen and video. So video output, obviously, you can adjust your resolution. You can select whether you want HDR, deep color output, which is required for HDR, the RGB range, and more. But you might be wondering, what's 4K transfer rate? Well, this specifically refers to things like chroma subsampling. So if you do a -2, it'll switch to YUV420 instead of RGB. So that is useful if you're running, say, an older AV receiver or even something like the original PSVR box. Though from what I've found, the system does a good job of auto-detecting what your device can support. Now in this case, I'm actually running this through a capture card, which limits what is available. So right now I am in 4K mode in RGB, but I do not have HDR enabled for capture. And you can see what's supported through this capture card. Now I also, of course, I've talked about the LG CX now that I've been using, and I can confirm that the PS5 does support 120 Hz output. It supports HDR with higher color depth, I guess. It supports HDR without compromise as well, and in fact the entire menu is displayed in HDR, which looks really nice here, I must say. The system in general just retains its HDR output no matter what you're doing. So that's kind of that. Over here then we also have this adjust screen area, which is kind of a remnant from the old days. It's really just a overscan adjustment. And yeah, this is kind of set for that. And yeah, here's the Blu-ray DVD connection. So I should also note, I think we've already talked about this now, the cable included with the system is HDMI 2.1. It does support the full 4K 120 output. There are no issues there. The only complaint I have here with regard to video options is that at least in its current form, it doesn't seem to support variable refresh rate. They have specified this on some spec sheets though, so hopefully it will arrive at some point. Now if we go over to sound, there's obviously 3 things to adjust here. The microphone built into the controller, you can adjust whether you want to use this or an external microphone. You can adjust the level of it. You can see me speaking right here. Very cool. Yeah, so, but this is perhaps more important than that. This is the audio output section. Now, in this case, again, because I'm going through a capture card, it's just sort of this stereo mode, but you can actually choose, like say, an AV amplifier if you want. And this is where you can choose then your speaker configuration. In my case, I actually have a 7.1 channel set up. You can, however, adjust the speaker positions to your liking and apply that. So that's kind of a nice touch. Now on the headphones, I don't actually have headphones here to plug in at the moment, but you can enable 3D audio from here. And then this is where you customize your audio profile, which is sort of how you allow the 3D audio to function correctly, I suppose, for your ear. You get to determine the level of everything, and it's pretty cool. Also, you can do linear PCM uncompressed or 2 different forms of bit streaming. Lastly, controller speaker volume. The controller speaker is a little bit higher quality than what was in the PS4, at least. It doesn't rattle so much, so you can kind of crank it up without issue if you want. So let's go check out some of the other things like storage. Here we go. So as you can see, the console has 667.2 gigabytes in total internal storage for games. That's the internal SSD. Here's where you have the games installed, items you can move. So I can move, let's say, so this is actually kind of a limitation right now that I was surprised to see. Essentially, you can move PS4 games to the external USB drive, but you cannot move PS5 games there, which means if you want to store them on an external drive, even if you can't play them there, you can't do that, which is something possible on the Xbox. So I really hope that this changes for those that would like to avoid having to re-download large games. Imagine having to download the new Call of Duty game, which seems to be coming in at 285 gigabytes. That would really eat up a lot of space on your PS5. Now, the expanded storage, of course, is just a USB drive, and in this case, I'm using an SSD. As you can see, it has 688 gigabytes free, or total, And yeah, here's where I keep Knack, of course, along with some other classics. Star Ocean's an interesting one. You can actually run that at native 4K and at 60 frames per second. We'll have to show that sometime, I think. So yeah, that's the basic setup of the storage menu then. Popping back out here, let's check out System. So under System, of course, we have console information, various other things like before. There's the data transfer option where you can actually move stuff from PS4 to PS5 if you just want to carry over your accounts and data all in one go. Also, the error history is kind of funny. Here's where you can actually see some of the differences here. So, like for instance, I actually did, as I mentioned in the video, I had a crash in Miles Morales, and well, there it is. It actually keeps track of this, so you can see exactly when this happened. And various other things. The content can't be found. No idea. That is bizarre. So yeah, so that's some of the stuff there. HDMI, of course, you still have to manually enable or disable HDCP here. You'd want to enable that if you're watching any sort of media apps or a Blu-ray movie. That's the high definition copyright protocol. But of course I have it off here because I'm capturing. And the device link is just sort of that HDMI CEC stuff where it sort of synchronizes the power state and various other things with other HDMI devices, which I also leave off. Then you got your language, date, time, all the standard stuff. Remote play. So I haven't tested this yet, but I think you can kind of imagine what this will do. Power saving as well, similar to PS4. Let's see what else should we check out here. Save game data. So it separates save data for PS5 games and PS4 games. And yes, it does actually allow you to download stuff from the cloud that is synchronized from your PS4 and use it in backwards compatibility mode. But this is cool. There's also the game presets option. You can actually choose which sort of difficulty you want the game to default to. You can also adjust whether you want performance or resolution mode. So like, let's say you're playing Spider-Man, for instance. If you had performance mode selected, it would start that game specifically in the 60 frames per second mode by default. Currently, it defaults to the quality mode, which in this case would be the resolution mode. Also, first and third person view, you can choose whether you want your camera default normal or inverted, which is very useful. Same with third person. You can see that. I like these features. It's a nice sort of way to sort of customize games before you even get started. And same with subtitles. You can default them on if you want. Or, let's say you're playing in a different language. Like say, you have your console in French, but you just want the original audio and you're playing like an English game. I assume, presumably, it would run the game with the English audio as the default, or whatever the default audio was. Automatic updates, of course. Spoiler warnings, that's interesting. And then game status, okay. Accessories. And here we just have, you can connect Bluetooth accessories. Currently, I just have this controller there, but you can actually pair it with other things, such as the monitor here in my area and 2 question marks. I'm not sure what that's about. Then if you go over to controllers, again, you can adjust things like vibration intensity, trigger effect intensity. For instance, if you don't want the motorized triggers, you can turn them off. You can change the brightness of the light on here. You can go dim or extra bright, which is standard. And also, you can choose to use a USB cable for, I guess, the PS5 controller, which is cool if you want to use in direct USB mode. There's also the media remote, which I don't have. Both the mouse and keyboard are listed as supported. And then there's the camera. There's both the PlayStation camera and I guess the HD camera is the PS5 specific camera, which again, I do not have here to test. Anything else in here? There's some nice accessibility options, networking, fairly standard stuff, I think. Obviously, there's captures and broadcasts. You can adjust things like this. The video quality is nice. Actually, I should turn this up. 1080p at 60 frames per second. Why not? Yeah. So that looks pretty good. So yeah, back out to the main menu here. we've already talked about most things. If I just fire up Spider-Man here, you get an idea of how quickly you can get into the game. Actually, I guess I already had this one loaded here. But yeah, so, oh, I loaded an old save. Oh yeah, and if you pop open the PlayStation menu here, if you just press it, you get this, which brings up some of the cards and news. And as you play, you actually see the sort of event cards there, and all the stuff here at the bottom, of course. But if you're in the game and you hold the PlayStation button for a second, it goes directly here. So it kind of has two states, depending on how you press the button, which has kind of been the case since they updated the PS3 UI back in the day. But I think that's pretty much it for now. Hopefully this gives you a good idea of what the PlayStation 5 user experience is, and hopefully you've enjoyed my rambling through this as I've been doing it in real time. But yeah, if you enjoyed this tour of the PlayStation UI, let me know, and if you would like to see the same for Xbox, even though it is technically the same as it was on the Xbox One, be sure to let us know, and maybe we can look at some of those features as well, at least the video stuff. But that's going to do it for now, so if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you next time.